If you've watched cruise content for more than 5 minutes, I'm sure you've heard a lot of the same advice. Always book a balcony, buy the drink packages, make sure you're always going on the newest ship. But after 20 years of travel planning and tons of cruises, both myself and helping others, I've changed my mind on a lot of it. And in this video, I'm going to tell you what I've stopped recommending to others and what I actually tell people now. The first is to pick the cheapest cruise line. Now, if this is your first time sailing, you might be tempted to go with the cheapest offer. In fact, that might be why you've chosen cruising in the first place, because it can be a very cost-effective way to take a vacation. And I used to go along with that advice quite often, but I've realized over the years that just because it says it's a cheaper price to begin with, it doesn't mean that overall you're going to end up with the cheapest overall price for a vacation. It also doesn't say anything about the value you're going to receive. So sometimes those cheaper cruises might not be the experience that you're looking for, and you could be very disappointed, and any amount of money that you spend will feel like it was too much. The real question to ask is, what's the total cost of everything going in, and what is the experience that you'll have out of that cruise? Is it something that's going to be what you desire for your vacation? For example, some of the cheapest cruises around are 3 and 4 day, what they consider booze cruises to the Bahamas or to Mexico, depending on where you're leaving from. Now, those can be great introductory cruises for a certain type of traveler, people who really enjoy the drinking, enjoy the activities and the things that go around with that type of cruise. But in general, if this is your first cruise vacation, I usually, unless you really enjoy that type of style, want to lead you away from that, because there are so many other cruises for such a variety of experiences and lifestyles and travel styles. You'll find a better experience, which to you will be a better value if you explore something outside of just the cheapest cruise to get in on. The second bit of advice I no longer give anymore is planning every second. I used to think that a lot of preparation ahead of time would save you from a disappointment on your trip. It would make sure you had everything reserved in advance and you didn't miss out on anything. But I've rethought that in years past. And now, although I do recommend pre-planning and reserving the things that are most important to you, I no longer believe in planning every single second. The reason being, and if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll have heard this by now, I believe very heavily in building in breathing space into your vacation. So what this looks like, if you're looking at your total cruise and you're looking at what you want to plan each day, I would look at the excursion potential or those ports and the specific things you want to do or see in those ports. I would pick the things that are most important to you, bucket list items, or the items that made you want to go to that destination in the first place. And I would plan a few of those. Hopefully it's not something every single day. And then I would leave space. Leave space for spontaneity. Say you meet somebody in port and you want to go have lunch with them. Maybe you're in port and you talk to a local and you find out about some great new restaurant, museum, place that you want to go see. If you leave breathing space, you have room for that spontaneity if you want to do something different. It also leaves you free to sleep in if you want to, relax if you want to. If you're exhausted and you just want to take a slower morning, you have that opportunity if you build in that breathing space. And finally, it helps prevent you from getting home from your vacation and saying, oh my God, I'm exhausted from my vacation. I need a vacation from my vacation. The next is to always buy the drink or dining packages that are available on cruise lines. So rather than just have it be a blanket statement that everybody needs it, I've realized that that is not true at all. It really comes down to your travel style and what you're actually going to be doing on those ships. Are you going to be drinking the alcohol and or the specialty drinks, specialty coffees, sodas, things like that? Are you going to want to participate in specialty dining? Are you going to need Wi-Fi? Really? Do you really need it or not? These are the things that you want to think about. And then you want to think about how much of that you might use. So for instance, if you are a drinker and you know I'm going to have a cocktail or two at the pool and I'm going to have a cocktail or two at dinner, then a drink package might be well worth the expense. However, if you're the kind of person that might have one or two, or you might have a specialty coffee, but you're not a big drinker, you might have coffee and maybe a soda, but you're not really planning to have much and you know yourself and you know you won't have a lot, then it might be better to do the a la carte version instead and not get that package. So it's really important to give deep consideration into what you think you'll use on that cruise and how often you will use it, how many drinks you might have, how many times you might want to do specialty dining. And then look at the numbers. Look at what the average costs are compared to what the package prices are, and make the decision that's best for your specific travel style. And there are tons and tons of videos on YouTube that will help you break down that math and help you make that decision. Or you can ask your travel advisor and they can help break it down and help you with that decision as well. The next piece of advice I don't give any longer is to always get a balcony. Now, I personally love balconies. I personally always get balconies all the time, but balconies are not ideal for every single person. It really heavily depends not only on you and your lifestyle and the travel style that you have, but also the ship that you're on, the itinerary that you're exploring, where you're going. All of that plays into whether or not a balcony is even right for you. For example, if you're on an itinerary where you're in port every single day and you know you're going to be exploring the port, taking excursions, when you're on the ship, you're most likely going to be out and about on the ship, doing the activities, laying by the pool, going to the spa, whatever it is. If you are hardly ever going to be in your room, then a balcony might not be worth the extra expense for you. Whereas if you spend a lot of time in your room, or you're on an extraordinarily scenic cruise like Alaska or in Northern Europe, Norway, things like that, you might want to have that balcony, to have that private space. It might be well worth the cost in those situations. So again, you really want to take some time to consider your particular travel style, the ship you're on, the itinerary you're taking, and then make that decision as to whether or not a balcony is worth it, or if an inside or outside cabin might be plenty for what you want to experience. The next thing that I don't blanket recommend anymore is to always arrive a day early. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're flying into a port, you do need to arrive at least a day early. But where this changes is I advise people to consider expanding that a bit. If you're departing from a city that you've already been to, flying in a day early is probably plenty. You don't have to worry about your flight being delayed or canceled. You're there and you can make it to the ship on time. But if you're going to a new destination, if you're going to a brand new country, a new city, and you want some time to be able to explore it before you jump in the ship and head off to other ports, I want to open your mind to possibly adding 2 days, maybe 3 days, even longer if you have longer and you have the budget for it, to expand your options and be able to give you more time in that city. Because on the cruises, you're going to have time in port, but the time is so little. It's so few hours for where you're going, and you really aren't going to get a chance to fully explore those cities. So really the only ones you can explore in depth are going to be where you embark and also where you disembark. Those are the two places where you can really expand it and enjoy a more in-depth look at those cities. The next bit of advice I don't give anymore is to always choose the newest ship. I fell into this trap a lot when I was first cruising. You want to experience the newest ship. It's the newest, it's the cleanest, it has the most cool stuff that they've added to it. And for the right person, taking the newest ship might be perfect for you. But you have to also give some consideration to where it's going, what the costs are, and what your travel style is. So often with the newest ships, they are going to be more expensive because they are the newest fleet and they come with a little bit heftier price tag. Also, because it's usually only 1 or 2 new ships at a time, you have a limitation in where they're going. They might not be going to a destination that you're interested in. They might be on the other side of the country and you want something a little bit closer for your first time. So automatically choosing the newest ship isn't always the right choice for everybody. Also, older ships are constantly being refurbished, updated, and can provide a fantastic experience for a little bit less of a price tag. And you have the option of getting the destinations and itineraries that you're really wanting. So when looking for your first cruise, I encourage you to not hone in only on the newest ship, but to give some thought to look at the destinations you're interested in, and then look at the ship options that are available for those destinations. And then you can compare and contrast those ships. And if you need help with that, again, work with your travel advisor and they can give you that comparison and help you make the choice that's right for you. And if it's the newest ship, fantastic, but at least you know that you've explored all of your options and you're making the right choice for your specific travel style. The other bit of advice I no longer recommend is to directly book with the cruise lines themselves. One thing that you may not know if you've not used a travel advisor before is that travel advisors have access to specialty rates and specialty deals with the cruise lines. The reason why is because we have special relationships with cruise lines. If we book a lot of people on that line, they give us more buying power. So they give us a little bit better rates. They also give us some additional things that we can offer. So perhaps it's an upgrade or it's room credits or specialty additions that we can add. When you book through a travel advisor, you open yourself up to getting better deals quite often. In addition to that, by going with a travel advisor, you're working with experts on these cruise lines so they can give you in-depth knowledge of the individual ships, the destinations. They can let you know new things that are coming, new itineraries that are coming. They give you an in-depth level of expertise that you might not have access to simply by looking over the cruise line's website. The next one is the adage that bigger ships equal better cruises, and that is definitely not always the case. The bigger ships, while they offer incredible number of activities, like I'm sure you've seen Royal Caribbean, and there's water slides and water parks and rides and all sorts of amazing things. That is amazing, and it is great for, again, a certain type of travel style. But you don't want to automatically go for the biggest ship for your cruise. You really want to consider what your travel style is and what you want to experience. Because along with those bigger ships come bigger crowds. When you get to port, everything is going to be more crowded because there's far more people. Even going to the water parks and riding the rides, those are going to be more crowded. And so if you're the kind of person that maybe doesn't like crowds or somebody that wants a little bit more relaxed pace, you definitely want to take into consideration some of the smaller ships. They might not offer as much as far as activities go, but they're going to have less people, less crowds. It's going to be a little bit more geared towards a premium quality of service and food. And it might be a better match for your specific travel style. So again, you really want to think about what you want to experience on this vacation, what you picture each day being, and then you can pick a ship that matches that and not just automatically go with the biggest or the newest. The next is to always buy your travel insurance through the cruise line. Now, don't get me wrong, I absolutely recommend travel insurance. I think it is vital for just about any vacation you take because you never know when you might run into an emergency, a canceled flight, delayed flight, lose your luggage. But even more than those, because those you can work around, is the medical emergencies. If you have to get airlifted off of a cruise ship, it is exorbitantly expensive. Or if you need care, dental care, medical care while you're in a foreign country, it is extremely expensive. So travel insurance is always a good idea. The difference here is I don't always recommend it through the cruise line. I actually recommend you get a travel insurance through a third party. The reason being, if you buy it through a cruise line and then the cruise line all of a sudden goes bankrupt, stops working, stops operating, that travel insurance does you absolutely no freaking good. So buying a third party, you have that extra precaution of even if the cruise line goes under, the travel insurance company will still be there and can still cover any money that you've lost from the cruise line. The other thing is what you look for in that travel insurance. There's a ton available today that will cover pre-existing conditions. So absolutely make sure it covers whatever conditions might be present for the group that's traveling. But also you might want to consider adding some of the cancel for any reason coverage. It's usually an extra cost, but if you think there's a chance you might need it, it might be worth adding that. And then lastly, if you're doing any sort of adventure excursions or tours, so if you're going scuba diving, if you're going to be, when you jump out of an airplane, what is that called? Skydiving. You're going to be skydiving. If you're going to be doing anything that's considered dangerous or more of a heavier adventure style excursion, you want to make sure you pick a travel insurance that covers that. Because you'd be surprised how many travel insurance covers things, but if you do something that they consider dangerous, they will not cover that. So if you're going to be doing anything like that, make sure that's covered in the policy that you choose. So I'm not saying skip travel insurance. I'm just saying buy it smarter. The through line in all of this is that cruise advice is most definitely not one size fits all. And anyone who tells you there's only one right way to cruise is wrong. It really boils down to your personal style, the style of the people who you're traveling with, what you want to experience on your vacation. That dictates everything. And if you're actually in the planning stages of your cruise vacation and you would like some help, I work with people as a travel advisor and I'd love to help. I have a link in the description below if you'd like to work with me. And if you are planning your next vacation, take a look at this video, which will help you in your next steps for cruise planning. And other than that, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. Happy sailing.